All right, well, cool. Well, it's great to meet you, man. Thank you for taking a minute out for the show today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, you bet. So before we get into your work, I want to know
Yeah.
this. I always start with the COVID question. 6 years ago, it changed our lives. How did you get through that era, and how has it changed the way that you live and work today?
So we have a cabin an hour from where I sit right now. And when it hit, we just had a lot of time up there because, it was just pretty wide open. There's not very many people. So it gave us a ton of time with our kids. I took a lot of time to write. I wrote a theatrical keynote and a comedy special during that time. So I got up, I wrote, hung out with my family. It kind of helped us to normalize a very not normal type of world at the time, and really kind of dive in and connect. It was really hard on my youngest son, who's an extrovert. He gained a ton of weight. He got really kind of depressed. But my oldest son's an introvert. He was like, "Oh, this is fine," And for my wife and I, we just really got some time together. I had a lot of speaking gigs that just we straight up canceled that year, and so I got a lot of time to kind of work on myself and have some time in nature. So it was definitely the best way to handle a bad situation.
For sure. So let's get into your life as an author, a writer, the money Jesus, all of the titles that you have. I want to synthesize this for a 13-year-old brain. You're at career day, you're in a school, and the kid in the back of the room wants to know what you do for a living. How do you answer him?
It's awesome because when my son was 7 years old, my wife told him, your dad's an entrepreneur. He's like, what's that? She goes, well, there wasn't really a job for your dad. So he just created one. And he's like, I want to be an entrepreneur. At 7, we have it on camera. It's hilarious.
That's awesome.
So really what I'm here to do is help create a million lasting legacies. And so whether that's from writing or whether that's being on a podcast or whether that's doing my own video or whether that's being on a stage or whether that's working with someone one-on-one, my mission is how do I help people to make legacy available and accessible, not something that seems so far off or something only for the ultra high net worth. And that's the most seminal work that I do. I definitely help people get their financial house in order. I did comedy to make it more fun because a lot of times, finance can be a little bit dry and boring, but it's a really important topic. So I kind of think of myself as a artist in a business owner's body type of thing. You could tell from the hair, I probably think I'm more of an artist than I am.
But you got the perfect melding of the right and left hemisphere going on, correct?
I mean, it was pretty cool to make money funny. I mean, one, I wasn't going to be the funniest comedian, but I could be the funniest money comedian, right? So yeah. I did the topic I knew around money, and it's on Amazon Prime called The American Ream. And that was so much fun to be creative that way. Or I wrote this book called Money Unmasked, and then there's 4 money personas, and people are one of those personas. So I'm like, I should act out 4 characters and help them understand those personas from the side that's about scarcity and it's kind of shadow versus the collaborative abundance side. And yeah, that was a ton of fun. It was super challenging. Worked with acting coaches, moving coaches, directors. We put a musical score to it, my buddy Jeremy Finley and I. So it's like a whole different experience to make it immersive and make where people don't realize they're learning, but they are, right? Sometimes like when it feels like you're learning, it's tedious.
Uh-huh.
But when you just happen to be entertained and it's actually got insight, that's what I really enjoyed doing that piece.
So when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? When you were at career day, what was your dream gig?
Well, when I was 5, I wanted to be a comedian because my uncles and my, on both sides of the family, I had a Mormon side of the family, and those uncles were hysterical. And then I had the Catholic side of the family, and they were just as funny. And my dad's always had this dry sense of humor, just one of the funniest people you ever meet. And my mom had an infectious laugh. She just would always have this biggest laugh around it. And so our family parties, comedy just felt like love. But I guess I wasn't serious about it until one day when my wife and I took a summer where we went abroad, and I just had a lot of time to think. When I came home, my buddy Keith is like, oh, our next speaker's hilarious. It was my first time back giving a speech. And I was like, wait, I'm giving a financial talk. I told some jokes, people laughed. So I immediately called my buddy who was runner up on Last Comic Standing. I'm like, I'm going to do an open mic. And when I did, he's like, dude, you're good. You should just open for us. And my wife could tell in my eyes. She goes, next thing you know, you're going to be traveling for this. Nah. Yeah, I did 16 city tour and then another 8 city tour. And, it was definitely fun. But I wanted to move the needle on legacy. So part of it was being that example to my kids, but also like taking it and, I'm going to have a book coming out using humor to teach finance, like merging those 2 worlds. So I get the creative itch, but I also have the impact.
Yeah. So take me back to your childhood. Are you from the Salt Lake area originally?
No, man, I'm from a small coal mining town, originally East Carbon, Utah, which at one time had 5,000 residents and two cops, now has 1,000 residents and five cops, so it might be going in the wrong direction. But yeah, my dad was a coal miner. My grandfathers were coal miners, my great grandfather. So we ended up in central Utah, Carbon County, where there's mining. That's where I started. Then I went to school in southern Utah. Then I made it to Salt Lake in the year 2000.
So what were the early seeds, other than being around funny relatives and seeing comedy firsthand? What were the seeds that obviously you're driven and you're successful as an entrepreneur? What were those things that were planted into you that has been harvested into who you are today?
Well, I started a business when I was 15 detailing cars. And it only had about $700 of net income when I entered a competition called the Rural Young Entrepreneur. And I went to Southern Utah University and I presented in front of a panel of judges. I was so damn nervous at 15 to give this speech. Like, I think I went pee like 8 times before, because you're just like so nervous. And then I went in there and I told a joke and the judges laughed and I took third place and it came with $500. I'm like, man, I've been scrubbing tar and bugs and made $700. I just gave one talk and made 500. I think that's the day I became a speaker, and then later on when the young entrepreneur for the state, the governor's entrepreneur came with 5 grand, the SBA Young Entrepreneur of the Year, with those kind of businesses. And then I wanted to invest that money. That's how I got into finance, was wanting to invest it, wanting to grow it, wanted to get to what I thought was the big city of Salt Lake City. It's a pretty small city, but when you're from a really small town, it seems really big at the time.
Yeah. So who's been your inspirational force, your hero in your life?
Well, my grandfather is probably my biggest hero. He was a TV repairman and he played the accordion, which he's in Italian, so it's pretty of course he played the accordion. So even though he was a coal miner, he had these two side businesses. And I'd go in his red van with him and he would fix people's Zenith TVs, those big pieces of furniture back in the day. And they'd pay him with money and tortillas and hugs and he'd win community person. So he just always took an interest in me. He was like my first client. I mean, he just, shared so much unconditional love. He was just like my favorite man. And so he was a hero. But I've had so many good people in my life. I think where I'm most fortunate is I just had a lot of people that unconditionally loved on me. I had a neighbor named Anna Mae who just always treated me so amazing. I had very loving parents that really pushed me to do my best. I had this teacher, Terry Tubbs, who got me into those business competitions. My mom worked at a woman, Patty Rigby, who taught me balance sheets and income statements. As I go through my life, that's the cool thing about growing up in a small town. So many of them support me still to this day. They came after 18 years of not seeing me to my comedy shows, and I just had all my high school buddies up to my cabin. We do that every single year, and it's really cool to have a community that kind of grows with you and supports you. I have another buddy that literally just texted me the other day because he's like knows I'm an Italian citizen and he's from Price. He's like, hey, my wife's an Italian. How do we get her citizenship? It's just cool to have that kind of connection to such wonderful people. As much as I teased the town that I grew up in for being small, it was big in heart. Like they really shared so much love and support and cheered me on and wanted me to succeed. And it's really quite special.
So who was your favorite comedian? Who always left an impression early on with you?
I mean, I'm just going to tell you about my two most recent amazing experiences in comedy. So I went to New York for Thanksgiving with my family, and we went to the Comedy Cellar, and my sons are 18 and 20, so we had to get permission, but they let them into the club, and they sat us up front. And Andrew Schultz interacted with my youngest son for half of the show. It was hilarious. It was great. It was fun. He was cool about it, shook both of our hands. And I thought his comedy special, Life, was a masterclass in comedy. I just thought it was so phenomenal. So that was really cool. It was tough because another comedian was performing in one of the other comedy stores. There's like 5 little clubs there in New York. And that's Neil Brennan. But I had seen him before, and I really think he's quite special, and he's pretty amazing. I mean, I've taken my son to see Chappelle. My wife and I have seen him like 5 times. I mean, there's so many great comedians out there. We went to Sebastian Maniscalco. My wife was laughing so hard, he had to keep looking at her, so there's so many good comedians that I've really enjoyed seeing over the years. But, that experience recently was really cool in New York.
So being an entrepreneur early on, I mean, you won money and you reinvested, but there's a part of when you work that hard, there might be something that you want to buy. What was the first big purchase when you knew that you made a little bit of money? Did you operate like that you wanted to get something or you got something, you indulged in it?
Well, I was kind of a miser early on in my career. Like, I tried to save every penny. I pinched pennies and had blisters on my fingers. Like, I was so tight I could have shit a diamond. Like, I was that guy. My
Yeah.
wife was like, "Who is this guy I married?" Because I gave her a ridiculously small budget to find an apartment. And she's like, this look at where we'd have to live. Um, but I did, eventually have my partner say, "Man, you can't drive a crappy car like you're driving and get good high-end clients." And so I bought a Bentley. But the thing is, like, it didn't get me any clients, man. My Bentley, when I took it to my hometown, they're like, "What's wrong with your Chrysler 300? That grill's weird." Like, if we were going for teenage boys, I had a lot of like 15-year-olds come up and want to talk to me because they thought that car was amazing.
Yeah.
So it didn't really do what they said it was going to do because I'm not a car guy. For some
Yeah.
people, they love cars. That's probably a good thing to do. Um, I'd say that the best purchase that I made was I bought this cabin. My wife and I just listed like, "Hey, what is everything that we want to create a special place for our family to come and build amazing memories?" I'm heading there after this. I mean, it's on the river. It's got big aspen trees. I do these one-on-one, family constitution, legacy consulting gigs up there for families. It's really quite special. And when I sold my business, I, paid cash for that. And it's just a really cool lodge. So uh, I do have things usually like more like trips that when we hit certain objectives, we take a nice trip, and that is kind of like earmarks accomplishing something great. But I want to be careful because I don't want to make my life about outcomes. I want to enjoy the process along the way.
Yeah.
It's fine to play a game of like when we hit these, benchmarking them with something that's memorable. But like even 2 years ago, I was like, well, what if I hit this benchmark? What if I bought a new truck? I don't know. I love my truck. I
Yeah.
drive a 2018 Ford Raptor. It's going to cross 100,000 miles. It's just my favorite vehicle I've ever had.
Yeah.
I don't care whether people love it or not. I love it. My
Uh-huh.
my hometown friends, they don't think it's a real truck because it's too small, and my wealthy friends think I'm white trash. But either way, I'm driving the truck that I want.
Good.
And I think there's a lot of bad financial advice, like, "Oh, you should always drive a used vehicle," or "Hey, you should buy cars that appreciate." Like, just do what works for you. You're not
Yeah.
going to get wealthy or not wealthy based upon the vehicle that you buy or drive. Really focus on your skills and how you add more value. And then go ahead and reward and indulge in the things that matter to you. If cars are your thing, well, maybe that's where you go a little bit extra.
Yeah.
If they're not, maybe it's trips that you take, or maybe it's the dinners that you go to, or maybe it's the clothes that you buy, or
Yep.
maybe it's the technology you have. Like, figure out what really moves the dial for you and go all in on that, but pay cash for it. That's the key. Pay cash for the things. Don't borrow to consume.
I love it. So let me ask you this. As a writer, who were some seminal literary figures, writers growing up in general that formed the way that you approach writing?
Well, I can tell you how I didn't approach writing because I took like a lot of classes like the Bronte sisters, and I just wasn't into that
Yeah.
classical writing type of stuff. Where I really learned is like back in the day when I was really starting to write my first book. I went on a trip with Tim Ferriss, and he was a good writer. So he said, "Oh, get this book on writing well." I was like, "Okay, that's cool." And then, Tucker Max is another really good writer. I've been through his courses. And so he's like, "Hey, you should read these different authors." But the person that's really impacted me the most is AJ Harper. She wrote a book called Write a Must Read.
Yeah.
And she really helped me with my one-man show, theatrical keynote that I wrote as a screenwriter. She helped me edit Disrupting Sacred Cows and Money Unmasked and really acted as like a co-creator. And she helped unlock my voice where I now have full confidence in what I write versus like being a little bit worried, a little hesitant, and then needing a lot of help with it. And so now I just, I don't even, a lot of times I'm writing from week to week without even using an editor. I just say to my team, "Hey, if there's anything that's glaring, make sure to change it." But I feel really good about what I'm doing. She really helped unlock that in me.
So let me ask you this. The one thing that can change the trajectory of
Oh,
our
and by the way,
lives.
Stephen Pressfield, the most impactful person for any writer. Stephen
Oh,
Pressfield's books are the seminal work for you to get to be a writer and get past all those like mental garbage or resistance or the things that would prevent you from writing. So Stephen Pressfield's War of Art, I read it every year. I'm just
absolutely.
rereading it right now.
So let me ask you this. Everybody, there's random acts of kindness that people bestow upon us, and it could change the trajectory of our lives. What's the nicest thing that anybody's ever done for you?
I mean, the first thing that came to my mind was my 30th birthday, I was speaking at an event, and my wife has her brother show up and say, "Hey, I'll run everything after you speak because your son's got to play and you don't want to miss it." And so I get home, and my wife had all my high school friends, all of my college friends, all my current friends, and my family go to my favorite camping spot. So we're talking about like, I don't know how many people there, for like 100 people, all in the same spot for my 30th birthday. She organized it, surprised me, planned the entire thing, which is really cool. Yeah, that was pretty great. That's just the first thing that came to mind. I'm sure there's other things, but that's just what popped into my head.
Yeah, that's amazing. So let me ask you this. Every day you wake up, you have all these things that you want to do, changing lives and just everything that goes on. What is that energy for you every day to do it at a high level, take care of your soul and your family? What is that when the alarm clock goes off in the morning?
So I don't set alarm clocks. I just get up when I get up.
Okay.
And usually that's determined by how excited I am the night before sometimes or how hard I work the day before. But when I sold my business in 2021 and I was doing comedy, I hit this point where I didn't really have a model of what I was doing in the world. Like I wasn't being of service or great impact. And it kind of felt like torture. I felt like I had this talent to give, but I didn't have a platform to really give it. And I was going through some real health struggles. I had some kidney issues from, my grandfather and my mom, and even some of my aunts have had polycystic kidney disease. And I started to have some really bad signs of kidney failure, and it led to insomnia. And it was like, I just kind of felt lost. And it took me till about July of 24 to figure out what I was going to do, because I kept asking, what could I dedicate my life to? What would be challenging in the most positive way that I would be willing to figure it out and be more resourceful? And man, it feels good to learn a new skill that's difficult. That was the fun thing about comedy, is like, it was hard. Write a one-man show, even harder. Like the process is where so much of the presence comes from, that I'm like, man, I'm really connected to this. And so I feel like if I'm of service by challenging myself and growing, I feel really good. Like I went on a trip this week, and before I walked in the airport, someone goes, "Hey, are you Garrett?" And I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Dude, I loved your book." We had a quick conversation on the way in. It felt nice. It's just nice to, I looked at him. He was like with his wife and his young kids, and he was being a super cool dad, like playing with the kids. I was like, oh, and then all of a sudden I have a conversation with him. Yeah. I sit down on the plane, and someone walks in, they're like, "Hey, are you Garrett?" And I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "I want to talk to you when we land because you really made a big difference for my dad." I'm like, "That's cool." Then I get to the event and speak, and someone walks up and they're like, "Hey man, I wrote a book because I've been watching all of your stuff." And so another person walks up and says, "Can you sign my book? I'm not even at the event, but I knew you're going to be here. And I texted you, or I sent a Facebook message 2 years ago. I knew we'd meet." Like, it's really cool that you get to build relationships because of the words that are written. You get to impact lives because of the impacting my own life and the lessons that I learned. Like, that's real special. And I really have a lot of gratitude for that, because in 2023, when I felt like I had all this to give, but I didn't know how to give it, I was a tortured soul.
Yeah.
I was unhappy. I was frustrated. I was uncertain. My health wasn't certain. My wife was like, "You're just not as fun anymore." It's like, oh man, when I'm in service, I'm fun. I'm excited. I'm telling stories. I'm laughing. I'm connecting with people. Like, I love that I can connect with people quickly that I've never met before because of the work that I do. And that I can hear stories about what it did for their life because I was willing to put it out there. Like, that's pretty special. That's a really cool thing. And when I die, my grandkids will still get to know me from all the work that I've done,
Yeah.
Like, I think about them, that they're not even born yet. And I think about my son reading Money Unmasked and the impact it had. Like, that's the cool thing. I mean, my favorite book is probably The Creative Act by Rick Rubin, which is just simply like the process of creating is the joy and the value. The rest of the stuff's just kind of like a byproduct.
Yeah.
But like the actual process itself is the win. The win's in the work.
Mm-hmm. Certainly is. So you just sparked a memory. I remember I heard that Seinfeld said that he wrote 10 jokes a day. Does that track? Does that make sense?
I heard that he wrote a joke every single day.
Maybe that's it.
10,
Maybe it's
but
one.
He wrote his joke at least one joke every single day.
Yeah. Is that kind of your mantra? I mean, because they say that about writing too. Is that kind of something you subscribe to?
Yeah, I don't write every day, but I probably write 5 days a week.
Okay.
And a lot of those days, it's a couple hours,
Yeah.
I really like to write in the mornings before the sun comes up. A lot of times I'll just be at the kitchen table looking at this beautiful view and just get all that kind of quiet time. On airplanes, I wrote for 5 hours on one of my flights this week. Just was like I was antsy because I just was able to really kind of focus, and that was a lot of fun. I learn a lot from writing about myself, and it challenges me in a good way. Like, how could I say this more clearly? What else do I need to know? What would I have to learn to be able to write about this topic? And what big lessons did I go through that I can now like fully learn that lesson instead of forget about it? Like it's really kind of nice. And I feel like the more I've been able to be vulnerable with my writing, the more connected that I've been able to be with people. And so, yeah, it's a nice process. I never thought I would have loved writing. I was too intimidated early on. Like, I couldn't be a good writer.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't tell people I was a writer, even when I wrote my first book, because I used a ghostwriter to help me.
Yeah.
But then now I write my own books. I write the books. And then I have a team that supports with editing and stuff. But I wouldn't want to delegate that because I love that process.
For sure. Have you seen Seinfeld live, by the way?
No, but my executive producer of my comedy special was the director of I'm Telling You for the Last Time and won an Emmy with Seinfeld.
Okay.
Yeah. Not is it Emmy or Grammy, whatever it was, like that you win as a stand-up special.
Yeah.
He won for the best stand-up special. Yeah.
Okay. Because my wife,
and he said he's even funnier walking around on the street than he is on stage. That's what he said.
That's what I would think. My wife got me tickets, and it was last year. Gaffigan opened up, which he's amazing, and he was just more aggressive than I thought. Not like bad aggressive, but his comedy was forceful up front. And I don't know if he was going through some things. It was really cold winter in Kansas City, but it was different from what I saw in his show and other comedy specials. So I was just curious if you had seen him.
Yeah, I haven't seen him. My wife's not she likes the show, but she's not a huge fan of his stand-up. And
yeah,
if I'm not bringing her, then it's, a little bit harder to
right.
go.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. So let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight, ran into the 18-year-old version of you, and you walked up at your age and there was a film projector and you hit play and a 60-second highlight reel of the life you've lived came up, would that young version of you believe your life turned out this way?
I mean, I think I was pretty damn arrogant at 18. I would have expected a lot out of myself.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have expected some of the hardships, and I don't know if I would realize how much love I would have for my wife at this point at 18, because I wasn't married, and what it would be like to be a father and the amount of depth that comes from that. And I don't know if I would have seen myself quite as lucky as I do today, and that I have two parents that are alive that I get along with really well. I work with one of my sisters. My other sister is fantastic, and we get along well with her, and I'm really close to my in-laws. Like, I don't know if I would have seen, that's the real lottery that I hit, is the relationships that are in my life. I've got these really quality friends. I think that the financial success, I kind of put the pressure and expectations on myself to get there. And in some ways, I probably put too much attention on that when I was 18, and even in the early parts of my life. And, sometimes still judge myself that I should be further along, or I made these mistakes. Like, I'm still so superhuman about it. I might write about it, but it's because I go through those emotions myself.
Yeah. So you had talked about a couple people approaching you and getting an autograph and talking about the impact you had. Has there been anybody that you went up to and did that to, that you were so overtaken you had to go up and talk to them and get their autograph?
Yeah, I was like, it's funny. It was a DJ that I loved his music, that I'd listened to in important parts of my life. And so I kind of went up, and I wrote about this on Money Unmasked because I just kind of vomited all over him in excitement, and it was overwhelming. It was before he was going to do the set. So that did happen. And then I'm trying to think, on the business side, there's, meeting Dan Sullivan, strategic coach, when I was in my early 20s, and I started strategic coach. I became, pretty close to him and got to know him pretty well. But that was a big deal for me because I'd listened to so many of his things before I actually met him. Then when I met him, I had a lunch with him. Then I, went and stayed at their guest house in Toronto and was able to interview him and get kind of an inside look, hang out with him at different weddings and stuff. So that was a pretty instrumental, because when I was at my late 20s, I was going through it for the first time financially. I was over leveraging real estate. Some things weren't working out, and we were both speaking at an event. And I said, hey, I could introduce you at this event. And he's like, that'd be great. And I introduced him. He got a standing ovation from the introduction because I could, in a heartfelt way. And then another speaker coach of mine, Roberto, was speaking. I said, hey, I should introduce you. He got a standing ovation. Then I had another coach, Ron, who wasn't a good coach. And when I introduced him, nobody really stood up. And he's like, what happened? I'm like, maybe I need to be more honest with you about things. But I remember I was starting to really deal with some financial stuff. And I sat down with Dan. I'm like, man, I'm struggling. And he's like, how old are you? I'm like, 29. He goes, oh, you're just going through it early. Every entrepreneur goes through this in their 30s. You just decided to just start early because you started in business early. And that was like really reassuring and helpful. And when I had some partners that died in a plane crash, and they brought me out and helped me out, introduced me to Joe Polish, who helped me learn how to market. And, it was really instrumental, these relationships in my life, that those connections and those insights helped me get through some of the toughest times and be able to produce the value that I do today. I mean, I look at almost every skill that I've developed. Sure, I did the work, but I hired people that helped me get there, that helped me to become better at what I do. And I think that's one of the messages that a lot of people miss in the world, is they think that investing is always putting money into an investment, not into themselves. And if we grow ourselves, we can grow our money better. If we only try to grow our money, but we keep ourselves small, we might have more money in the future, but we don't have a bigger life. And I think the important thing is to think about how can we develop our value, because when we're more valuable, we serve in a greater capacity. When we serve in a greater capacity, we feel a lot better about ourselves, or at least I do.
So aside from your wife and family, when you look back on your life and career, the big rearview mirror, what are you ultimately the happiest about, the proudest of?
I mean, my youngest son just wrote a letter saying I was his hero. And it's so funny because I was helping him with some college applications and critiquing, as a writer. I'm like, God, you're using too many filler words. See how you can cut this? And then we get to the one where he's saying, my dad's my hero. I work out because I watch him work out, and I know about money because of everything that he's taught me. And if I could be half the man that he is, I would feel like that's great. And I was like, yeah, I have no suggestions on this one, son. But I think that's really cool. And that, my oldest son, we just worked out together yesterday, and he's always asking me like, hey, is there anything I could do better? I mean, I just think he's such a kind human. We've really raised these two really great, kind humans. And I'm really proud of that, because it's been a real effort for my wife and I. And the fact that we're 23 years married and we're deeply in love and care more about each other now than before. And we got through the hard times. At year 7, we almost didn't make it through from 7 to 9. I was, in over and over my head in business. I wasn't really available as a husband. It was a really tough time. We had 2 young kids, and I was kind of absent for that first couple of years. So as I just tried to piece this together. So a lot of major lessons because of that.
So Garrett, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, everyone that takes in your comedy and your speeches and your books, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I amazingly forgive everyone else in the world before I forgive myself. So I'm pretty critical of myself in a lot of ways. Like, not that I don't enjoy things. Like when I did that comedy special, I felt like, wow, this is incredible that I was able to do this. And it was so much fun and brought people together. There's other times where I just felt immature because I wasn't a good leader and I was a people pleaser, and it created, a cultural issue in one of my firms, or I didn't stand up to bullies enough in those firms, and I kind of kept them at bay. But when I was gone, they were really difficult for other people to work with. It was really hard on them, and I wish I would have done that different. So I also go, this is just part of learning, and I can learn so much from those experiences. And it's why I can speak the way I do and write the way I do and have compassion for people that are going through it, or that are in struggle or pain, or that there's hope for the other side. And so, when I was in my early 20s, I think I saw myself better than I was.
Yeah.
I'm amazing. What a catch. I just was arrogant and didn't know any better. I just thought it was, and now I kind of look at myself probably and have to remind myself of it's all part of the process, and make sure that I fully love who I am and don't identify myself as any mistake that I've made defining what my life is. And so that's where being of service to others helps me through that. And also just taking responsibility, because if I don't take responsibility, I become a victim, and victimhood never creates prosperity.
Yeah.
Anytime someone's in complaining and blaming instead of in creating, it's not a very good place to be. And I found myself there in 2023, which was super annoying, because one day my wife was like, hey, we done with this? And I was like, oh my God, I've written about this. I would easily coach myself, but sometimes we get so close to it we can't read the label.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But man, I definitely am a willing to work for it type of person, and I've created a pretty great life overall with several mistakes along the way that I look back and go, man, that was really dumb, but I was emotional in the moment, so I get why I tolerated that for so long.
So if you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one event in human history, it can be a comedy set, it can be just something that happened. What would you love to have seen in the pantheon of human history?
Man, that's a big.
It's a lot of stuff.
I'd like to see I like to see Jesus's first speech. First off, I probably don't really look like him because he was Middle Eastern.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like talk about a movement in history and in humanity, that would be pretty amazing to witness.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really want to be there for the death, but
Right.
for the first part of the movement, that'd be pretty special.
For the early glory, for sure.
Yeah.
So you have Italian citizenship?
I do. Yeah.
Right on. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been
So
over there a few times. It's amazing.
changed my life. I learned about, quality of life and leisure at a different level.
Man.
And so I reclaimed my birthright. So I'm a dual citizen, US and Italy.
Wow, that's wonderful, man. Yeah. So if anybody wants to delve into the comedy, the words, speaking, any of the good business, they want money advice, all of the good stuff, where do they go?
Yeah, I would give me a follow on Instagram, Garrett B. Gunderson, B as in boy, Garrett B. Gunderson. See how I do all this on a daily basis, drop some golden nuggets every day of financial wisdom. Even if you want more information, you can go to YouTube. Garrett.live in any internet browser will help you subscribe to my YouTube channel. GarrettGunderson.com is my website, but the comedy special is actually on Amazon Prime. It's Garrett Gunderson, The American Ream. Drop the D, The American Ream, and you can see the comedy special there. So yeah, that's a smorgasbord of things to check out. All my books are on my website, or you can get them at any of their favorite online retailers as well.
Okay, I will put all these links in the show notes. Garrett, what a joy, man. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time.
No, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.